Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1191B, and today's date is January 30th, 2017, and the title of the episode is Obama Comes Out of the Shadows and Challenges Trump. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the corporate media over the weekend, they are pushing the idea that Trump's executive order is a Muslim ban. And this is a complete lie, because if you read the executive order, there's no mention whatsoever about religion, about anything except for the countries that he banned. But they like to play this up, and they like to lie a lot, as we can see. Now, they're also not telling people that this is completely temporary until they get a process in place to deal with the refugees from the 7 different countries. None of those 7 countries are among the list of nations from where the largest number of Muslims immigrate to America. Even more, those 7 countries were chosen and named by Obama, not by Trump. Both Obama and former President Jimmy Carter invoked temporary bans on travelers from terror-linked countries. So, what they're doing right now is they're blowing everything out of proportion. We also see that they're saying that green card holders, they won't be allowed back into the countries. While White House Chief of Staff, Priebus, is out there saying, well, this does not affect green card holders whatsoever. If you're traveling back and forth, you're just going to be subjected to further screening. That is it. It doesn't mean you can't enter the country. And Trump is out there, and he's defending his executive order on immigration. And he's saying that there's nothing, once again, in there that it's a Muslim ban. This is media falsely reporting what it really is. Now, if we go back in time to Bill Clinton, he was campaigning. He was also telling the people while he was president that we need a stronger, secure border. He went on to say, "We are a nation of immigrants, but we are a nation of laws. Our nation is rightly disturbed by the large number of illegal aliens entering our country. Illegal immigrants take jobs from citizens or legal immigrants. They impose burdens on our taxpayers. That is why we are doubling the number of border guards, deporting more illegal immigrants than ever before, cracking down on illegal hiring, barring benefits to illegal aliens, and we will do more to speed the deportation of legal immigrants than ever before. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws that has occurred in the last few years, and we must do more to stop it." And Congress stood up and they applauded him. And then we had Obama, who was out there, and he was campaigning on a secure border. He was telling everyone that we need a secure border to stop the illegals from coming into the country. And we could see the corporate media, they don't like to refer to any of this. So Kellyanne Conway was out there, and she is saying that all of this is misinformation. The corporate media is completely going in the opposite direction and not telling the truth. And we can see at this point, that's exactly what they're doing. She said, 1, it is not a Muslim ban. You will search the executive order in vain for mentions of Islam or any other religion. Now, Tim Carney at the Washington Examiner points out the largest Muslim majority countries in the world are not named in the executive order. The order is based on security reviews conducted by Obama's deputies. Kellyanne Conway pointed out the 7 nations named in Trump's executive orders are drawn from the Terrorist Prevention Act of 2015. The 2015 Visa Waiver Program Improvement and Terrorist Travel Prevention Act of 2015 named Iraq, Iran, Sudan, Syria, while its 2016 update added Libya, Somalia, and Yemen. And if you really look at this, you can see that these are the countries that the United States went into and had regime change. That caused the problem. Like, once again, we really need to think about, why is all of this happening? Why are all these refugees coming to the U.S.? Well, first of all, Obama said he was going to bring them here. But second of all, the United States government, central bankers, the neocons, the elite, they created this situation. They are the cause of all of this. And what we're seeing right now is that this ban from these countries that are taking from Obama's Terrorist Prevention Act of 2015, well, it's temporary. And it goes on to say that citizens of these 7 countries named as security risks are banned from entering the United States for the next 90 days. Refugee processing is halted for 120 days until they can get their system up and running to look at all this. Now, Obama banned immigration from Iraq, and Carter banned it from Iran. Now, fact-checking website PolitiFact twists itself into knots to avoid giving a true rating to the absolutely true fact that Jimmy Carter banned Iranian immigration in 1980. One of PolitiFact's phony talking points states that Carter acted against Iranian nationals, not an entire religion. And if you look at Trump's executive order and you read it, it's pretty much the same. It does not act against an entire religion. It names 7 countries. Now, Trump's aide, Stephen Miller, he says the U.S. has an absolute sovereign right to determine who can and cannot enter the country. He went on to say that the precedent for Trump's action, and that the United States is a nation with an absolute sovereign right to determine who can come into the United States and who can't. This is an authority that has been repeatedly used in the past. Now, one of the more recent examples is President Obama's suspension of Iraqi refugees for 6 full months. And 2 Iraqi refugees were implicated in al-Qaeda plot in Bowling Green, Kentucky. There's been hundreds and hundreds of foreign nationals and foreign-born naturalized citizens who have been implicated in terrorism in the United States since 9/11. And he went on to say that this is a matter of national security. And we can see from a story from ABC News back in 2011, well, he did ban refugees coming in from Iraq. And if we look even closer, there was a proclamation that he signed on August 4th, 2011, and the presidential proclamation, suspension of entry as immigrants and non-immigrants of persons who participate in serious human rights and humanitarian law violations and other abuses will be banned from the United States. So all of this was in place, but the corporate media is out there and they are completely blowing this out of proportion. And of course, we know why they're doing this. They're trying to show that Trump is doing something completely out of the scope of what every other president has already done. If you notice, there were no big rallies when Obama did anything. There was actually really no mention of it. They kept that on the down low. But what they're doing with Trump right now is they're mentioning every single aspect. And then we have Soros and other groups out there pushing these rallies and continually pushing the idea that he's doing something out of the ordinary, which he really isn't, because we've seen in the past from all the evidence that this has been done before. And there's nothing new here. Now, former President Obama has emerged out of the shadows, and he issued a statement reacting to President Trump's executive order to restrict immigration from high-risk countries in the Middle East, urging Americans now to organize against President Trump. Through his spokesman, Obama also opposed discrimination against people because of their faith or religion. Although he did not say that Trump's action did so. He only makes people believe that's what's happening. And again, once again, he is not doing that. It doesn't say it in the executive order. There are many other countries that have Muslims. He didn't mention Muslims. He didn't mention religion. He mentioned countries. Just like Obama did with his executive order. Just like all the other presidents before him when they had to ban certain countries. They didn't say the individuals with regards to religion, race. They said the country. And with regard to comparisons to President Obama's foreign policy decisions, the president fundamentally disagrees with the notion of discriminating against individuals. And he's asking people to rise up, to protest, have their voices heard, and he's telling people to do this on a complete lie. They're taking what is there, facts, and they're stretching them, and the corporate media's joined in with this, making people really believe that this is what this order is all about, which it is not. And you can see how the opposition party works. They work together. They manipulate facts. They explain away what is happening with their own facts, their own illusions. And if you call them out on it, they don't like to hear that. Now we see Trump, he's also signed executive order on regulations. Now, for every new regulation, 2 regulations must be revoked. So 1 in, 2 out. Federal agencies will need to revoke 2 regulations for every new regulation they request, and the White House will review the proposal according to administration officials. The order sets a budget of $0 for new regulations in 2017, and the administration will set a regulation budget each year. So we can already see that he's trying to get rid of regulations, because if Congress and these lawmakers want to come up with something, they're going to have to get rid of 2. Very interesting in this type of approach. We see Trump is accusing McCain and Graham of looking to start World War III. And he says that Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham, both of them are continually undermining Trump and criticizing him on immigration. And he went on to say that the joint statement of former president candidates John McCain and Lindsey Graham is wrong. They are sadly weak on immigration. The 2 senators should focus their energies on the Islamic State, illegal immigration, and border security instead of always looking to start World War III. Well, these individuals are neocons. They want war. The elite want war. And remember, the elite just don't control Democrats. They control Republicans and Democrats. Trump kind of sits out on the outside of all of this. And that's why really there's very small differences between the 2 groups, the 2 parties. Because behind all of it are the real individuals who are calling the shots. Now, we see there's this huge petition that says they don't want President Trump inside the UK. It has received about 1.4 million signatures where they're saying that, you know something, we don't want him in here. Now, there's about 1.4 million signatures out of 64.5 million people. Well, it looks like then 63 million people want him to come to the UK, if you want to look at it the opposite way. Now, out in the Philippines, President Duterte has accused the U.S. of building a permanent arms depot in his country, and now he's warning President Trump that such moves jeopardize the security treaty between them. And he's saying that this cannot be. He does not want this in his country. And he threatened to tear up the treaty. Now we'll have to see what Trump does, how he reacts to Duterte, because we know that he did not like Obama, and he was ready to cut the U.S. out of the Philippines completely because we know what they were doing. The elite, they wanted China encircled. That was the whole plan. This is why they needed all these countries. This is why they wanted to bring in military assets into these areas. This is why they were using the right-of-way excuse, which, of course, the United States never ratified. And they were trying to push that, oh, we have the right-of-way in the sea. And we can see this was all about provoking China. And they were using the other countries to do this. And the Philippines said, you know something, we don't want to be part of this. And they went and spoke to China without the U.S. And China said, you know something? Yeah, you can fish in the seas. We can work together. It's not a big deal. But the Chinese military right now, they are looking at the situation and they see that the United States is still building up for war. And they're saying that war with the U.S. is becoming a practical reality if we don't start to talk to each other. If we continually move in this direction, eventually there will be war between the two countries. Now, we know that Trump is pushing his economic policies. We know he's starting a trade war, which normally leads into a world war. And we know that China always tries to calm the situation down diplomatically. Yes, people are going to say, no, they never want to do this. Every time Xi Jinping is out there, he says, let's talk about this. He does the same thing that Putin does. They don't want a war. The elite, the central bank, the neocons, they want the war. Why do you think they've been surrounding China? Why do you think all these military assets and the missile systems have been brought into this area? Why do you think the missile shield was brought into Europe? Even after the P5+1 deal, the missile shield is still there, and it's not pointing to Iran anymore. It's pointing to Russia. Why do you think they wanted to bring in the THAAD missile system into South Korea? They were pointing it at North Korea and China. Now we see Russia is out there, and they're holding a large Arctic military expansion, and they are having drills out in the Arctic region. They're also scrambling to reopen abandoned Soviet military air and radar bases on remote Arctic islands and to build new ones as it pushes ahead with a claim to almost 500,000 square miles of the Arctic. And we can see right now they understand if there is a war and these individuals who want war in the United States actually push war, they are getting prepared and ready. Remember, Russia has not placed their missile systems, their assets, their troops into Canada, Mexico, Cuba. They haven't done any of that. They placed their systems within their country because NATO and the U.S. have moved up to their borders, but I believe the U.S. would do the same exact thing if it was the opposite way. If Russia was putting their missile systems in Cuba, placing them in Mexico, placing them in Canada, the U.S. would be like, ooh, we feel threatened right now. Why are you doing this? This is exactly how Russia feels. And they don't know what is going to happen. Now, we know that Putin and Trump, they're discussing the situation in Syria, discussing the situation with Russia and the United States. And hopefully, as we move forward, they talk about peace. But we also have to worry about the elite, the central bankers, the non-elected government. Well, they want a war. And we know that the corporate media was out there and they were talking about safe zones in Syria. And Lavrov is out there saying, listen, Russia is open to safe zones, but we don't want to call them safe zones. These are not going to be called no-fly zones. Planes can fly over them, and the U.S. should have nothing to do with it. Because the plan was before was to have a safe zone and have the moderate rebels in there, to have the U.S. set up bases in there, and they were going to be used to launch attacks on Damascus. He's saying maybe we should call this a refugee type of area, where refugees can go since they're kicked out of their area where they lived because of the paid mercenaries, the terrorists, and the battles that are being fought in that area. Now, Russia said they're open to this if Damascus decides to go along with it. And if Assad says, yes, we will do this. Right now, Assad is saying, no, we do not want to do anything like this, because he's very nervous that the U.S. is going to commandeer these safe areas and use it for their own benefit down the road. Which I wouldn't blame him. Actually, the U.S. should leave Syria right now, because the United States government central bankers, they were not invited into the country. They actually invaded the country. And Congress should be demanding that troops be removed from this area. And if we are going to go after the Islamic State, we should work with Russia to get rid of the terrorists only. But if you notice, throughout time, Obama never wanted to do this. He never wanted to work with Russia. They kept Russia and China out of it, because their agenda was not to get rid of the Islamic State. It was to use them to overthrow Assad. Now, we're seeing a lot of rumors out there that Assad had suffered a stroke, and this is coming from Saudi Arabia. It's coming from the coalition forces, and it looks like they're trying to build this up that Assad might not be well. Now, this might mean that they're going after some type of assassination attempt by removing him, not with a bullet, but with maybe some type of poisoning or something like that. Because you have to remember, Russia is putting forth a new constitution that says that Assad will be in power for 7 years, because every 7 years they'll have a new election. And again, these elite, these central bankers, they don't want to wait that long. And if this constitution goes forward, this is a major problem. Now, Syrian forces, they have intercepted a carload of armament destined to al-Sham, also al-Nusra. And what they found were U.S. manufactured tow missiles, 30 grenade launchers, dozens of RPG missiles, a large amount of rifle ammunition, and this was all being shipped up to the terrorist groups. So we can see right now, those individuals within the government who still want more are still pushing their agenda. They have not stopped. And we'll have to see if something really does happen to Assad, because this would be one way they can really move into Syria, by forcing an election on the people. And of course, what they're going to have is the candidate that they want. And of course, as we know, the elite like to manipulate elections. So it looks like they have a plan. It is in motion. And this is something that we need to watch, because what we're seeing right now is that the elite, they haven't given up. The corporate media, the elite, they're together in one, and they're going to continually push their agenda. They have not given up. And we can see as we move forward throughout this year, things are really going to heat up. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.